The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it Thursdays here. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing okay. Teachers celebrate, at least here in the state of Nebraska. Many of you, it is the last day. Exhale. Have a cold one. Enjoy your summer. Thank you. We'll get plenty of Nebraska baseball thoughts. Impressive win last night for the Big Red, as they stay alive in Omaha, set to go at 2 tomorrow. Try and climb out of that loser's bracket. They dispose of Purdue in an elimination game. Some thoughts there. Numbers to get in at 489-1240. 489-1240. Toll free at 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Always welcome to check us out on the stream. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Give us a find and follow as well on Twitter at HVarsity Radio for the radio Twitter handle. Always follow the big Hail Varsity Twitter handle as well at Hail Varsity, at Herbal Essence for Elijah's Twitter, at Schmidt_radio for me. Snuck in. We were hoping to play 18, so going back to when our kids were in elementary school, got a group of friends that we play golf. Now, 2 of the 4 ended up having to work today. Presentations, couldn't get out of work. It was brutal, and I believe them. It wasn't I'm not golfing with Schmidt again. I would have understood that too, but they're not in the habit of not telling me honestly what they think. So it's me and Jay Bird. We got out there. We swung the clubs. Elijah, the whole world was out at this golf course, and it was beautiful. It was well kept. I putted well, so I'm going to say the greens were immaculate. But, brother, it was a 3-hour round for 9. For 9. And that's just how it goes. But guess what? It's better than the alternative of not being able to go out and sneak out this annual last day of school tradition.
Why? Were you walking it?
No.
What is the reasoning for 3 hours?
Because
a lot of lost golf balls, like a lot of backup on the course?
No, I mean, we spent more time waiting to hit than playing.
Okay. Well, it's a popular day to go out and go golfing. You're not the only ones that like going golfing on the last day of school.
Clearly. The world was out, but it was good to be out there swinging away. Your guy, Sean Payton, is rocking the Air Jordans in his... Is Payton 60 yet?
No.
I don't think so either. He's pushing that way, though.
He just turned 60.
Okay, so he's got the Air Jordan 11s in that Denver orange that he was wearing at practice. So clearly, if Sean Payton can rock Jordans, I can think about them for Father's Day.
You're 62, right?
I am not. I'm still not even 40 yet. If we go back to one of the rejoins,
that one is officially dead.
Did you erase it or did you retire it?
It's no longer on the button board. I'm sure it's still somewhere in our system. I can't press that button anymore because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing it and being like, this thing's got to be at least 10 years old now.
It was 15. It's all right. We'll check in. Mike Babcock going to join us, get some thoughts on Babbers on Nebraska baseball. Some Husker football is out there. We'll hear from Athletic Director Troy Dannen. His interview last night with the Husker Sports Network laid out some response to this Friday night football fiasco. But his take is very measured and understanding and a matter of fact. And that's what a good AD does and says. And he lays it out there. We'll hear that. Joel Klatt has chimed in with the topic of bounce-back teams. Nebraska is on that list. He is buying stock in the Big Red. So what constitutes bounce back to you? Is it as simple as 6-6 bowling? I think you got to be going into November as a bounce back. contending for a spot in Indy. I think bounce back is a relative from 5 and 7. To me, bounce back says at least 8. Right? I think if I'm going to put a number on what bounce back means to me, it means 8. It means probably almost going unbeaten at home if you're Nebraska. I mean, there are just some criteria to get to that point, because it's not just a record, right? You can slam together 7 and 5. Part of it is the eye test here. And what's Nebraska look like? And as good as they looked defensively, probably 85% of the time, the eye test told you they were 5 and 7 offensively. Brandon Vogel going to be with us in hour 2. Vogues is writing about kicking today. Ooh. He also wrote about a really talented tight end that may see some early time with Nebraska. We'll figure that out as Brandon Vogel is in hour 2. And then Tony George is going to join us. He's with Doc Sports. Tony George, a longtime founding member of the Average Joe Sports Show. But Tony George has been in the sports gaming industry for 4 decades. He is going to be with us today. Our dear friend Danny Burke is shocking. Danny's at a bachelor party.
Good for see.
Here's what Danny does. Every Thursday, the last 6 weeks, he rolls up to a bank and he asks the cashier for $50 worth of ones.
No, I think he rolls up to the sportsbook window and says, "Cash that in ones, please."
He doesn't need to embarrass himself at the bank.
Well, no, but Danny and I both have reached that age. He's 3 years older than me, I believe.
I think so.
We have reached that age of like, oh my God, it's a wedding every single weekend this summer. And I love celebrating my friends getting married, but at the same time, it's like, can I get a Saturday
Do you ever pull
off?
a Vince Vaughn and just cough and go, "Don't do it"? I mean, you do one of those with, or have you? Has there been an intervention?
Not after the proposal. I've definitely
voiced your
been like, oh, you're thinking about getting a
caution?
Ring. You're thinking about getting a ring
Say it
now.
like that.
That's your choice, man. But I don't. I use it that tone to be like hey, I'm not going to explicitly tell you not to because it's your life, but you will know there's some doubt in my voice whenever I ask you that question. So, but we are definitely at that age now of like wedding every single weekend, and I'm like, thank God it isn't me, yet. But well, I had a point to make off of that. Danny Burke, Ones Sportsbook. I don't know, I lost it, but I would like to, before we get down to business, just give a quick shout out. As it is the last day of school, my roommate Darren, this is his last day of school as well. I give him the shout out now because we are going to probably be fighting like cats and dogs by the time he is back at the house and ruining my nice quiet mornings, because he's off at school and then summer vacation happens and he's going to be ruining my quiet mornings. So, but for now, a shout out to him. He's finished up his last day of middle school for the 5th time.
You understand the hell that man goes through every day being a middle school teacher.
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
I can see the look in his eyes whenever I get home at night, and I go, it was one of those days, huh? He goes, yeah. But he's finished it up. He has decided that he will at some point this summer go teach some summer school, so God bless him for that one.
Oh, you think your days were bad during the normal regular school year?
Just wait for summer school whenever all the kids want to be at the pool.
Right. Now they're at summer school, and it's like, do it now or you don't graduate.
He must have some masochist thing going on where he's teaching middle school and summer school. But shout out to him. We're going to try to get in some sort of celebration this weekend to celebrate that. Shout out to him. But now we can go back to business.
We'll dive into just what we do have video-wise with Scotty Scheffler. That has been on fire today online, and pretty much Scotty Scheffler was in a marked car. Scotty Scheffler calmly, at least from this distance dashboard cam, pulled up to the gates. We fast forward a week today. I mean, the guy's still charged with a felony. Scheffler is. You've not had that taken off the table by the Louisville Police Department. We're talking 10 years, second-degree assault. The video we saw does not see an officer getting Happy Gilmore'd, right, by the guy in the Volkswagen. That's what was in my mind of cop trying to chase down Scotty Scheffler. in front of the headlights. Stop. Doesn't happen. The guy goes head first into the windshield. That to me
was the mental image you had?
Was the mental image. We're talking just brutal hit and run.
No, the cop was able to outrun Scotty Scheffler's car.
He did.
He's a big guy. He's faster than it.
He raced up and he started pounding again per this dash cam video, pounding on it. We didn't see the cop drop and get drug. I mean, I don't think the gates were completely open to accelerate through. And it's just, listen, we've all worked with idiots. Maybe some of us are those idiots other people work with. And I love law enforcement. But this is a just awful look right now because the guy didn't turn his body cam footage on. There's no initial interaction as to where the cop's reaching in, dragging Scheffler out. Physically, it looks like turning the vehicle off. And it sucks because you don't want that to be the reality for this officer because he's just going to get hammered for it. You've got every Twitter journalist and every normal journalist going nuts here, digging into this guy's personnel file, and it isn't good. And we all have we shouldn't say it. Some of us have had bad personnel reviews before.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Oh, you think? Notepad is out. Office meme ready. So that's a big story today.
And I'm glad we're going back to that after as much as we talked about it today.
Oh, it's incredible.
Matthew chimes in and I'm kind of right with him. He has, I'm going to sue a police department and the entire city money, and he should do it. Yeah. From what I saw today on this film, I think Scotty, after this lawsuit's all said and done, might be able to buy the entire city of Louisville. Like, throw the case out now if you're the city of Louisville.
And I think you have real issues already existing with the Breonna Taylor no-knock warrant deal, and that thing's horrible with the wrong address. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean it's god awful where someone innocent got killed. This is an officer that seemed overzealous, and I don't love the climate right now for law enforcement, where they've had to put up with a whole bunch of crap of people throwing things at them and getting in their face, and you've had protests. And I'm not knocking folks who protest. It's totally your right. You're constitutionally available to do that. I'm saying don't be an a-hole. Don't be a goon to police, ever. Follow their instructions. Please treat them with respect. And 99.9% of 100 officers aren't this guy in this moment on this video footage.
But whenever you have two people that have done nothing wrong, aren't being a-holes to cops in the same city,
it's brutal.
It makes you wonder what's going a little bit deeper. You know what's going on with the Louisville Police Department?
And that's too bad. That is a reasonable take, reasonable thought process, and it's probably not an accurate one because you probably have really incredible officers in Louisville. You probably do, but you have this guy that is, all right, maybe he can't screw something up. Let's throw him on golf duty. And then this happens.
Well, to compare it to football, you can have 21 incredible athletes on a football field, and one guy who isn't bought into the culture can ruin an entire football team. Yeah. So that's the football comparison I'll use.
It's hero ball, right? I mean, it's the best way to put it. Speaking of, how about Luka? Some hero moves last night as Dallas takes game 1 against Minnesota.
You finally get off the schneid with the steak and beer bet?
I stopped the
hemorrhaging.
The levee was already busted. I at least put a little bit of duct tape and bubble gum on that dam. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs going. We'll hear from Joel Klatt on Nebraska. We'll hear from Athletic Director Troy Dannen as well. Anxious to get Mike Babcock's thoughts on Friday Night Football. Babber's in the green room here on the StreamYard. He is wearing his Grateful Dead tie-dye. I'm excited for that. KG is in. A kinder, gentler version. He is first in back-to-back days. He says, I am MJ. Anonymous is in. I was... we'll read all of that. I was scooping the peek down at the top of the grain bin last night, and all I could think about was if I had a heart attack, the only way they could get me out would be like the Horse and Animal House. Animal House is classic. They had to use a chainsaw in Dean Wormer's office. That was the meeting with the mayor, Carmine, the mayor, who also threatened to have Dean Wormer's legs broken if he used the term extortion again. Jeff is in. The other Brian, lucky number 4, KP 300. KP, good to have you back here on Hail Varsity Radio. Justin is in. Mike is in. NASCAR Eric, good to have you back. Jeff checks in. Jimmy is here. Ken is also here. The other Dave is in. James Williams, good to have you. And Mark T. beat the Snitley brothers. That's one way to brag. I love that. The founders of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Crew is in, and
Crew's gone off the deep
end. Someone find Dion. Chris is in as well.
Yeah, we'd love to see Dion. If anyone knows his whereabouts, we'd love to have him back in the stream chat. Also, great to see NASCAR Eric back in the chat. Yep. Not suspended. Congrats, Eric.
Love that. I concur, Patrick. Bounce back equals 9+ wins. We'll get Mike Babcock's thoughts. It's Hail Varsity on a Thursday, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So, an important question is asked by Jeff Snitley from the Boulder Peace Treaty. How many steaks and beers has Schmidty bought Elijah over the years? And I had to respond. I'll respond on record. I said, look, we have an ongoing tab. It's a running tab. It's like Norm's tab from Cheers. We'll never pay each other.
Well,
we'll never pay up.
One of these days, Schmidt will be retired, enjoying his lovely lake house home and wherever it is. And
my wife's allergic to water. Isn't going to happen.
Okay, the point still stands. You'll be enjoying your retirement someday, and I'll call you up, and I'll be like, hey, Schmitty.
Need that steak.
Christmas is coming up. There it is. I need that half cow, buddy.
Do it now. Cliff in from Florida. Mike Babcock with us from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. Get Mike's bi-weekly newsletter. Subscribe to it. It's free. It's incredible. Great perspective from Mike. It's at Mike B at hurrdatsports.com. Send the email there. Babbers, good to have you. Love the Grateful Dead shirt. Which concert or arena is it from or centered around? What show? Is it the Europe 72 tour?
Yeah, I think it's Europe 72. It wasn't anything that I was at, actually.
That's okay. But, it's a good album.
Yeah. I like that. I like that album. As many of them I like.
No, they're incredible. Little long, strange trip to get to Friday Night Football, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that because I think that should be reserved for high school games, and I'd like to see people, Husker fans, be able to go to the local high school games in their area or whatever, and now your Big Ten's taking that away with these Friday night games so that they can get on what Fox, I think, is doing that game, and it's more money from that standpoint, but not a fan of Friday night games for college teams.
Do you think it's a slip in status for Nebraska to have to host?
That's an interesting question. When I initially saw that, I was surprised because I thought, that shouldn't be at Memorial Stadium, kind of a thing. But, I don't know what the reasoning is in that whole thing. Is the first Friday game, is that USC and Rutgers?
First Friday game is going to be Kansas State and Arizona.
Oh, okay. I was thinking
September 13th, I think. Maybe the 8th.
I was thinking, I thought the Big Ten had one before Nebraska, and that was Rutgers and USC. But
might be. Let me pull it up.
I may be wrong. I don't believe follow Rutgers football that closely. And
the first Big Ten Friday night game of the year is Illinois at Nebraska. It's not the first Friday night game of the year, but it is the first Big Ten game, I believe, followed by Washington at Rutgers.
Okay. Okay, so we got for people that like me that don't like the Friday games, that's here you go, Nebraska-Illinois. I don't know what kind of viewership you get in a situation like that. I'm sure people have done the research and have the numbers and what the expectations are. But again, I'm not in favor of it.
Well, one of the things I brought up on the show yesterday, Mike, is if you go back 10 years ago, to have one of your best matchups of the day in college football be at 11 a.m., that big noon kickoff slot, that was unthinkable. It was almost a laughable idea that, we can have Ohio State, Oregon, or name your big noon kickoff game that we've seen through the years at 11 a.m. I mean, go back to Nebraska, Oklahoma, and back-to-back years in Norman and in Lincoln. It would have been unthinkable. That'd be a primetime game any other year, but that's the new era of college football where they tapped into a previously untapped market, putting a great football game at that time. Do you think this could be the exploratory efforts towards trying to get a great Friday night football game every single week? So now it's not just a good game at 11, a good game at 2:30, and a good game at 7. You can also get into that Friday night market and put a good game there as well.
Will it catch on? Will it turn into Sunday night, Monday night?
Exactly. That's kind of the thought I'm having with them testing out Friday night football.
Yeah, Friday night. Well, here's the other thing. Does this have any kind of impact on recruiting?
Sure as hell does, don't you think? I mean, you can't bring anybody in on Friday night that weekend.
Right. And is that a negative? Because recruiting is so important now because of all the things that, the transfer portal, the NIL, everything like that. I think you have to consider that as well. But again, I'm sure that they've done the research and the numbers show that this is a good idea or potentially a good idea. And let's see how it goes. But impact on recruiting is another factor, I think, that has to be considered.
And whenever I think about that, the same argument was brought up for 11 a.m. football, which is a little bit different. And that was just hard to hop on a flight Saturday morning and make it to a game at 11 a.m. Friday night is the night where it does become legitimately impossible unless you have a high schooler playing a game on a Thursday night. But combine it with the fact that now a kid would have to miss school on Friday in order to make it on a recruiting visit. That is the one big detractor that I see. I think fans can get used to a Friday night game even if you don't like it. I think that, people are going to still attend high school football on Friday nights, but still, at least in Nebraska, the vast majority of people are not going to a high school football game on Friday night. I think you can work around that. The recruiting is the one thing that I do see. Hey, that means one game a year. You just can't have any recruits in the stadium.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're only talking about one game situation there, but I still think it has a little bit of an impact, and I would like to see again some reconsideration. But it's the nature of the game, and you've got to generate revenue some way. And if you're right about that the majority of fans, for example, in Nebraska, are more likely to be going to a Nebraska game than they are to go to a high school game. I think that's a valid point. But if there are good players, good high school players in Nebraska being recruited by Nebraska, you're probably going to want to go out and watch them play too.
I just think if you're in a better spot with how you've performed in the league, you're not being subjected to this. You're not Ohio State. You're not Penn State. Right now, you're not Michigan. I mean, those are the three big dogs. All the newbies from the Pac-12, they've had to do Friday night football. They've done Friday night football before. Their conference title game was on Friday night. So it is what it is with them. It's no newness to them. This is new, though, to Nebraska, to Lincoln, having to host on a Friday night and jack with all the logistics and then the recruiting side. You put up with a road Friday if you're Nebraska, if you're the brand, if you're bringing the eyeballs right to a sparsely populated college campus or program. Traditionally, you say, all right, well, this is part of why we got accepted into the Big Ten. You're going to use us for viewership. That's something we can help out with for the league if it's not competing for championships. So, but to have it turned around and to have to host, Iowa hasn't had to host. And they've played good football. They've won ball games. And part of this is, all right, what is your value and what's your record like? So things can take care of themselves if you start handling your business on the field, Mike.
Yeah, true. And if this were back in the day where sellout crowds meant capacity crowds, and you had a full house at Memorial Stadium watching that game, that's good exposure, I think, for the program. And again, as Elijah said, I think it's only one game during your season, so that if you could have that big crowd and show the dynamic there, it could be a positive for Nebraska. You got a lot of people watching it, and look at all these fans in this stadium. They packed it. That's a positive, I think.
It's Mike Babcock with us here on Hail Varsity Radio as we continue our thoughts. Nebraska-Illinois, Friday night, September 20th. And Mike, one more thought here I want to get on this is, how do you think the university, with it being the 400th sellout, makes that a special event? I think back to Volleyball Day in Nebraska, where that's a real all-day event in order to lead up to that match. Do you think that it's, I guess, intentional from Nebraska to make the 400 sellout a Friday game so you can turn it into an all-day affair, potentially cancel classes for the students, which I don't know how you could have a home football game without canceling classes, considering the students park in all the lots that all the fans are going to want to park in all day on Friday. But do you think this becomes an all-day affair for Husker fans on a Friday, that, you know what, you take work off, you come down to Lincoln, and we celebrate the 400th consecutive sellout in style? Or on the flip side, do you think that this is going to take away from the 400th sellout and make it not the celebration that it could have been?
Is that I don't think I was even aware that it was the 400 sellout.
Yes.
So, that could be a big deal. And I was, that's one of the things I was hoping, that Nebraska would get to 400, that they would sell out, keep that streak going, even though, as well as I do, that you go to the games now, and even at kickoff, at some of these games, there are obviously lots of seats available high up in the stadium. It could be that kind of a thing, because you're right, there's a dynamic on campus too. How are you going to handle that situation if you don't make some kind of decision like that?
Mike, we're up against a tough break. Can I have you hang on? I want to get your thoughts on Husker baseball on the other side. Can we do that?
Sure. Yeah,
for a
that's
couple
fine.
minutes. All right, Mike Babcock with us. He's wearing his Grateful Dead tie-dye Europe 72. He has delivered as promised. We'll hear from Athletic Director Troy Dannen next segment as well. In hour two, Joel Klatt, bounce back teams. What does bounce back mean to you? What's the number to you as a Nebraska football fan? We'll hear from Joel Klatt, Brandon Vogel next hour as well.
And one more quick thing to note here. I think this has inspired me. Should we get the tie-dye Hail Varsity Radio shirts up on the Hail Varsity Radio merch page? The Mike Babcock shirt, if you will?
I think we need to do a tie-dye designed by Babbers.
Ooh.
Mike, is that something we can talk you into?
He's muted.
He's muted.
We can talk about it after the break.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, you've seen the Grateful Red shirts back in the day.
Grateful Mike.
No, just
I'm trying to think here.
Go Big Babbers.
Ooh. Well, we'll have to workshop it a little
yes,
bit. We got 3 minutes in the break to think about this.
We will huddle up and bump heads. Mike Babcock continues. It's a Thursday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back onto this tie-dye topic. Babbers, Mike Babcock in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe. It's where it is Grateful Dead 72 Europe shirt. He says, oh my God, Grateful Red, tie-dye shirts, just take my money. Somebody's already done these. Babbers, you've seen them, folks milling around the stadium. I think I saw them late 90s, early 2000s with some of the college students wearing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if they've been retired or not.
But it's different with the Hail Varsity Radio logo on there, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get the big Hail Varsity Radio logo on the back. Support your favorite radio host, Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And
I think what you do, too, is you figure out a way to invoke you know how the Grateful Dead have the skeleton, right? I mean, hold your shirt up, Babbers. You have the skeleton on it?
Well, I've got the...
It's the ice cream guy.
Oh,
yeah.
that shirt is great.
Yeah, well, the album's better, dude. I mean, it's awesome.
I mean, if you're listening on the radio, I feel bad for you because you don't get to experience this wonderful
It's
shirt.
got some clown-looking guy with bad teeth and the rainbow afro. He's got an ice cream cone. He's planting right on the middle of his forehead. I'm saying you invoke some sort of black shirt skull for the Grateful Dead skull.
Yeah, that would work.
And Mike, I do want. I'm not saying you'd ever sell this shirt. I just want to make sure you know what you have. That shirt, if it's true vintage, you could probably get big money for that. And I'm not saying that you would ever sell that shirt. Don't get me wrong here, but that shirt it's fantastic. I'd pay big money for it. I'm sure everyone else would too. That's a fantastic shirt.
It's good. We need we need another Grateful Dead shirt next week. The cone could be the corn cob. RI is on top of this. We need to all huddle up for T-shirt 101
with RI.
Yeah. So
I've got some good ones too that aren't tied up. That are
okay. That is good. Mike Riley shirts with an ice cream cone. Don't forget the sprinkles, Tiger Shark Diver, when you win.
And it says hip hip hooray on the back.
They do, right. Mike, Husker baseball, they live to see another day. What a job by Sears. The offense came along. Some guys that didn't get the nod in game one really came alive and hit the baseball. How you feeling about Nebraska in this tournament? It seems like they always kind of got to get slapped. And once they do, they respond in kind they did last night.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is will their pitching hold out coming back from the losers bracket? You know, can they do that? You feel good about McConaughey pitching tomorrow against the loser of
Indiana, Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah. So he could be playing Ohio State again. You know, offensively, the thing to Nebraska cut back a little bit on the strikeouts. Against Ohio State, they struck out 12 times, only 8 second time around. So I feel a little bit better about that if they get control of that. And, you know, Karen's hit with some power. You get home run from Swanson again, and you feel pretty good about that, you know, tomorrow. But again, what's going to happen with the pitching when you go into another game when you're trying to come out of the losers bracket? But number 1 seed Illinois lost too, so it's the nature of the competitiveness of the tournament.
Well, and Illinois survived, and Iowa's coach got tossed. Iowa got eliminated.
Did you see that call?
I heard about it. We were getting off the ninth green and was talking to our dear friend Munchie. And he's like, dude, Iowa got absolutely robbed. Their coach got tossed, and they even went to replay and got it wrong.
Yeah, it was.
I'll need to see. I never saw it.
I'll send you the
described.
link here. I've sent some texts around to some fellow umpires and been trying to gain a consensus here. I don't think anyone is seeing interference on this play. Basically, it's a double play. Bases are loaded for Iowa in the bottom half of the 10th inning with no outs. They're down by 2, and as the double play ball comes in, they're never going to beat that at first. The runner's going to beat it out at first base, and there is no contact. The throw is not affected. No one's really quite sure how interference was called, and on the replay, it is confirmed. So I've sent some texts around, and I still have not heard anybody who agrees with the call on the field just yet. If I do hear any reasoning why,
the call on the field resembles the traffic stop in Louisville.
I mean, like the
last Thursday.
The defense turns it perfectly. Where like the the fielder isn't even in the baseline. He's well out of the baseline. I don't think if the runner tried to make contact with the fielder, he could have, and yet they still called interference. So it happens in baseball. That moment, bases loaded, bottom of the 10th when you're down by 2 with no outs, that's a rough way to get eliminated. Rough way to get eliminated. And without speaking ill about the umpires, I'll just say I didn't see whatever they saw.
You say I wouldn't have made that call.
I just didn't see what they saw. Maybe they saw something that on the TV cameras you can't see, which that happens sometimes. I didn't see anything.
Babbers, what's coming up here this week? What's happened with your newsletter? And folks can get subscribed, Mike B. at HurrdatSports.com for Mike Babcock's bi-weekly newsletter with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. What are you focusing on, Mike?
I think the one that came out or is coming out today is on the recruitment of Tommy Fraser and how significant his mom was in the process, encouraging him to take his visit to Nebraska, even though he was kind of burned out at that point and had decided that maybe he wouldn't take that last visit. And then the recruiting of Kevin Steele, his aggressiveness and staying with Tommy to get him to come here.
Well, can't wait for that.
Well, that's a significant thing in Nebraska history, obviously.
Can't wait for that, Mike. And now we have an idea for you, talking about Iowa baseball potentially getting screwed. The biggest screw jobs in Husker football history. You could go through the list. I'm sure that would go over great.
There's games, there's moments. I mean, we need to categorize, don't we, Mike?
Yeah, that Penn State game in '82 was
ding,
not real
ding,
good.
ding. Coach McBride still loses it on that.
Well, if you'd have had replay, I think that would have been pretty clear. Well, unless the officials didn't see what we saw. But, yeah, that was Nebraska. That probably cost Nebraska a national championship.
I think you can also put Texas A&M. Was that 2010? 2009?
That was bad.
2009.
2010.
2010. You're right. 2010. That one was really, really bad as well.
15 penalties, and I thought somebody was going to get murdered that night by the Pellinis.
And was that Cotton who almost lost his manhood at the bottom of the pile?
Yeah, he's getting speed bagged.
Yeah, that was one of them. I remember that year for Halloween.
Think about coming over to the sideline there, both screaming at you. Poor old Ben Cotton's getting violated. and then Bo's screaming at him because he had to kick back.
That's a
self-defense, Coach. Self-defense. Babbers, we'll check in next week. Thanks again for the time today.
Peace out.
There he is.
The Grateful Dead way to leave.
I love it. Mike Babcock wearing the Grateful Dead gear will wind down hour one. Brandon Vogel's 15 minutes away. Tony George with us from Doc Sports in hour two.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out with us. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Like and subscribe the digital version, and able to do that and get your input that way. Give us some feedback, good, bad, or ugly. We'll be happy to take it. And also subscribe and like the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube. Reminder to get buckled up. Driving is a full-time job. Phones, food, and friends need your attention when you're not driving. Stop the distractions. Just drive. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We spent a minute here on the Iowa-Illinois finish and absolute brutal job with the umpiring in Omaha to eliminate Iowa.
Yeah, and we have some more comments on some other Husker screw jobs that we can get into here in a second. But caller in during the break. Apparently during the Indiana-Ohio State game, the broadcast crew explained that the interference was called on that play. And Schmidty, you've now seen the play, correct? They've explained that the runner was called for interference due to the fact that he did not slide directly into the base. I'm not sure exactly where that info comes from. That could just be the broadcasters trying to explain it away because they're also employed by the Big Ten.
There was no contact.
There's no contact. I thought upon first watch that maybe when sliding, he has one arm that extends up into the air. But then you see the alternate angle. It's not even close to interfering with the play, and it's also a pretty natural sliding motion from an umpire's point of view. You can tell whenever the guys throw up the hands unintentionally.
Interference to me is Will Clark going in to destroy Ozzie Smith and whoever the hell was playing second for the St. Louis Cardinals in '88.
And I had one this season umpiring high school baseball where a kid overslid the bag. It was one of those plays that came from shortstop to second. Second gets behind second base in order to make the throw, and the kid overslides the bag and makes a whole bunch of contact interfering the throw. And I call it interference on that one. I mean, there's no contact. It's not a case of the Iowa guy reaching out and trying to make contact with the lower leg. The hand's not in the way, and it's a pretty natural part of the sliding motion. Slides directly into the base. It is as clean as can be. Mm-hmm. It's as clean as a whistle. And apparently that's what we heard from the Big Ten broadcast. I should note, the broadcasters are also paid by the Big Ten here, so they could just be trying to explain away that call without more information, but he slides pretty directly into that base, and I cannot for the life of me see why interference was called.
And this is what allows people's mind to creep to, well, they want the one seed to make their way to the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, you get your conspiracy going.
At least the NBA. Have you seen the NBA's 2-minute drills recently?
No.
So they've started doing this in recent years where in the last 2 minutes of a game that is decided by 2 scores or less, they will go through and they'll analyze the last 2 minutes of the game, and they will fess up, hey, this was the missed call.
This is where we were wrong.
It's not going to change the result of the game, but this was a missed call. I'd like to see that through all levels of sports, that whenever something like that happens in the bottom of the 10th, I wish the Big Ten could turn around and say, hey, we screwed up this call. Apologies to Iowa. We'll see you next year.
Cliff is in when we're talking biggest screw jobs in Nebraska football. Corey Dixon, punt return. The clip, they called Lance Gray for a clip. And you had the TV footage just absolutely. I think Bill Walsh was doing that game with Enberg. And it was the infamous Byron Bennett missed it left ball game, but Nebraska gave Florida State everything they wanted in the 94 Orange Bowl, but brutal. Yeah, that phantom clip was god-awful. We'll get to hour 2 with Hail Varsity coming up.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Brandon Vogel with us as we've done some shuffling this week as we get ready for the holiday weekend. Weekend edition will be off and running Saturday morning. Just a friendly reminder, Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. CounterRead.com is where you can log on, subscribe at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Vogues, how we doing? We are getting all sorts of compliments in the stream with the shirt you're wearing. If you can watch the show, do so. Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Mike Babcock had his Europe 72 tie-dye shirt on. We requested tie-dye last week. He delivered. What does your shirt entail? I've got a golf shirt on. I snuck out for the last day of school. It's pink, and it's got burgers and fries because I'm a piggy on it. And I can't... It was on sale. There's my statement for the room. But you're wearing what? Is it a Cub shirt? Is it some sort of design? Is it gridiron? What is it?
No, it's just a floral shirt, but in kind of a unconventional blue and brown colorway. So not quite Hawaiian, you've seen. I have a Hawaiian shirt that's, bright and tropical and pink and green. This one's a little more earth tone, I guess.
Did you ever dare wear the Hawaiian shirt to the football study sessions with Mr. Hawaiian shirt?
I didn't. I don't think I was in possession of a Hawaiian shirt at that stage of my life. That would have been fun to show up one of those Monday mornings.
Coach Darlington would go over film with us. It was great, and Uncle George, always the king of Hawaiian shirts, the king of Hawaiian recruiting.
Absolutely. I mean, a West Coast guy, like that's right in his wheelhouse.
That reminds me, I need to pull the floral Hawaiian shirts out of the closet this weekend for Memorial Day. It's fitting. I mean, we're gonna have decent looking weather in Nebraska this weekend. Might need to pull maybe for the Saturday morning show. Wear a good Hawaiian shirt.
You go right ahead.
I got 3 or 4 in the closet.
I got to find some sort of Spicoli reference T-shirt, Aloha Spicoli or something, and maybe I'll do that on Saturday morning. So we ended hour 1 just blown away with Iowa-Illinois baseball. We also talked in hour 1 about what the dash cam shows with Mr. Scheffler. Scotty, of course, a week ago gets cuffed, gets booked, gets his tee time pushed back, and then goes and scores, I think, 2 or 3 under. We have more footage. So somehow the topic is hose jobs today. And in reference to that Iowa-Illinois baseball, I sent you the footage too, Vogues, of the air quote interference call. Is there one moment or play that sticks out to you with Nebraska football of, oh, dear Lord, and it still just burns Nebraska fans? Is there a play in mind you have?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing 09 Texas has come up. Though that one, to be fair, like you look at it on replay, and if you're like, okay, well, if that's the rule, then like that's the rule. So while I didn't live this one real time because I would have been 3, I mean, I think the 82 McCloskey catch against Nebraska, Penn State, Nebraska in 82, probably has to be about as high as you can get on the scale, right? Because I mean that's a play where like you've got like one crappy TV angle from 1982, but even with that, you can see like that's not a catch. So that's the one that came immediately to mind for myself. 4th
and 6, McCloskey catches it. The T-shirt that's been out since we talked shirts today too was the Penn State sideline, where it's a normal sideline and then it jets out about 8 feet and comes back in. It's the weirdest looking sideline in college football. There were those T-shirts. I was barely alive for this, but talking to folks that were on the sideline, Nebraska ended up winning the game, so it was okay, but it was Tom Rood destroying Kelly Phelps. Maybe you've seen the footage. It's on about every tunnel walk highlight where there's this short kick to the sideline. Kelly Phelps fields it for Oklahoma. Tom Rood comes flying down, and people on the sideline thought it was a gunshot. That's how hard the hit was. Phelps fumbles.
Didn't he break his jaw too?
He broke his collarbone.
Okay.
And Nebraska recovers at like the 17, and they rule the runner was down, and T.O. is losing his bleep. Imagine mild-mannered T.O., Mr. Stoic, Mr. Reserved, Mr. In Control, and he is. He lost it. He was on hands and knees, palms slapping the sideline. There's footage of it. And then everyone talks that has worked for him or knows him, talks about the jugular. Like both jugulars were going. He was insanely ticked. Cliff says Kelly puked his guts out, literally. That to me is it. But Vogues, your point is well taken. That was a game that cost Nebraska a championship. They were 12-1 that year, 11-1 that year.
Yeah, they were. And I mean, and that was kind of, 82. That was kind of the only, I don't remember if that was that the only loss that year? Anyways, it cost them a shot at the title. Yeah. And then you come into, 83, which like winning a national title potentially, or even playing for one, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't change the result of the 84 Orange Bowl. But Nebraska goes on that run too. So it was pretty big deal. Like I said, I didn't live it. I just have lived it since I've become more cognizant of Nebraska football. And that one stands out. That one stands out as pretty big. But the Rood hit is a good one. Similar to the Penn State catch, like you can watch this and, glorious 1970s quality and be like, oh, that's a fumble. Like it's not even close.
That's a death on the field. It's more than a fumble.
Yeah, that too.
And Brandon, you led this conversation off by saying 2009 Nebraska-Texas Big 12 championship game. That actually didn't come up. Because when you watch the replay,
a lot of them have been 94 Orange Bowl related.
I know Bo hopped on a podcast last year. It's pretty clear on the replay that the clock was at triple zeros when that ball hit the ground. I'm like, no. You could make the argument it was at triple zeros and hit the ground, but when it first contacted something out of bounds, clearly at 1 second. I remember the drama being, and I didn't check this back then. The drama was that was not a reviewable play to check the time on the clock whenever the ball hit out of bounds like that. And I can't remember if that was actually true or not, but I remember that being a discussion after the game, that was the quote-unquote screw job. Not that the clock was at 1 second. I think that's pretty indisputable.
God, who was the safety?
Yeah, I would agree.
Go ahead, bud. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say I would agree, and I mean, and another thing is like Texas still had to hit a 40-something yard field goal, whatever it was, with Sue, who that's the thing I remember about that time period live was like, no, Sue was just going to find a way to block it. He's done everything else in this game. He's had a season worth of TFLs and sacks. So he'll just block it like he's already done, I think, 3 times this season. And then he didn't, and Texas made the kick. So I think that contributes. It's interesting, though. I'm surprised that was kind of where my mind went first, just because it's the most recent and kind of one of the more painful ones.
Okay, and 2 back-to-back comments here, one from Eric, one from Cliff about the Kenny Bell block. That is one from my era that if the game was closer, maybe would be indicated. I mean, and also in modern college football, it's definitely a crackback block, but that wasn't a rule back then. That was one that if the game had been closer, I think might stand out in the memory more as being a screw job. But if I remember correctly, that game was 49-14 at that point, so it really didn't matter.
No, it was just Kenny doing something for what all the fans wanted to do.
Electric.
It just hit somebody. JoJo versus Michigan. He kind of got hosed in a tight ball game. The DPI and JoJo Doman.
Oh, Adrian Martinez forward progress not being stopped against Michigan.
That's fair, where they go try and blow his knee out. You've got Pick a Moment against A&M in 2010, where there's some Aggie cameraman that sees Carl, and then there's no more cameraman.
that 2010 A&M game was, that's full of some good candidates.
You got what, the 7 straight years of Nebraska in conference play, their opponents not being called for a holding penalty.
I think the biggest screw job, Vogues, is Nebraska hosting a Friday night, specifically the 400th
what a transition.
Consecutive sellout.
That's why you're a pro. That was good.
Does that make this list? Let's dive into this.
Honestly, I hear the arguments for it. It kind of felt inevitable that Nebraska was eventually going to host one of these, because it's been at least more open to it than sort of some of its blue blood peers. Like Ohio State is just like, no.
And they get to it. They have enough juice to say go to hell, don't they?
Yeah, and that's the other piece too. So I think it's a little bit of both of those things, and like the high school football piece of this is real. Will it make a difference in the stadium on Friday? Like, some people who want to be there won't be able to be there, but it'll fill up. So I'm just kind of, honestly, I was a little bit. I don't like to feel this way, but just being honest, I was a little bit in Dannen's camp, where it was kind of like, it's inevitable. Like, you get a lot of money from the Big Ten, and if you hadn't, put your foot down from the very start and said, like, no matter what, like, go out, get the best deals you can. We're just telling you, we're not playing on a Friday at home. Then you're kind of just waiting for the shoe to drop on that, and so it has for Nebraska. That rule 1-0 against Illinois in Friday games. That's positive.
What's the biggest loss to you in playing a game on Friday night? Is it recruiting? Is it the issues it causes for fans to make it down to the stadium? I think some people in this room can appreciate that they can book a tee time on that Saturday, and it makes things good for them. I look at the fact that it really throws off a schedule for the average Husker fan that, hey, you have to take off work on Friday to make it down to Lincoln now. And I understand the high school side of things, but more than high school, I understand the recruiting. But what's the biggest loss to you with a Friday night football game?
Well, I think, Nebraska's a little bit unique. I was at that Illinois game last year, Friday night game. I don't remember if that was the first Friday night game I've been in attendance for to cover or not, but if it wasn't, one of few. And like Nebraska is unique in that, well, one, it's a geographically big state, and you literally bring people from all over. Like I grew up about as far as you can from Omaha, Lincoln, and there are people there who have season tickets, and that's like what they do. They get off work Friday night, they make the 6-hour drive to Lincoln. They have wherever they stay, and it's the whole thing. And like, okay, I guess you could take a day off on Friday and do that starting Thursday, but it's not quite the same. So I think that's probably the biggest loss. The recruiting piece of it, I don't think is as big as it would be normally, just because Nebraska has 3 home games leading up to that. So you can kind of work around it. You can be like, okay, well, the season opener against UTEP, Colorado, and then Northern Iowa, for anybody who can't make it to the first 2, will be our big home recruiting weekends. And then that Friday, it'll be a little bit deader than normal, but I don't think it's a huge detriment from that regard.
Stephen weighs in. Crouch, K-State 98, the Linda Blair game where Travis Oaks rips Crouch's helmet all the way backwards on 3rd down. Nebraska was driving to whack number 1 K-State. That was a hell of a good game, despite a depleted Nebraska team. Vogues, we've got about 2 minutes here. I know you wrote about Carter Nelson, and what's your feel? Do you think Nebraska will find some use for him, or do you think it's going to be just slow doses? Small doses, better term. I can't say slow and Carter Nelson in the same sentence. Forgive me.
Yeah, I think they'll find a use for him, and I think he'll make it tough for them to keep him off the field. I think he's the 5th highest rated by 247 rating recruit at Nebraska since 2011. So since the first class that they brought in as a member of the Big Ten, all of the guys, the 4 above him and the 5 below him, they all played as true freshmen. Like there were, not a ton of blockbuster seasons in that group. It was like Aaron Green, Turner Corcoran, who's still on the team. I'm forgetting his name now. Anyway, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Guys that have been that good have played as true freshmen. And Nebraska's in a good spot in that if they stay healthy and the receiver depth develops as it does, including tight ends, like I don't think they need Carter Nelson. It's not like they need him to come in and be a guy right away, but I think he has that potential. And if you don't have that pressure to do it, that's a pretty good setup. So I'd be surprised, I guess, if he ends up redshirting in 2024.
Jason checks in. Lincoln businesses are going to suffer. I was talking to my buddy Jay Bird. Jay Bird's been around the restaurant scene for a ton of years. This goes back to the Friday Night Football, and interested to hear the feedback from the restaurateurs and patrons that are going to have to deal with that. Specifically, folks that really love those 7 Saturdays a year. Vogues, can I get 2 minutes on the other side to talk kicking with you?
Sure.
All right, good. Brandon Vogel going to be with us here.
One more thing I'll say about the businesses. You know what really makes businesses suffer? Husker home losses. Have you seen the stats on how much more money Husker business or Nebraska businesses make after Husker win?
They do better, but win or lose, you still booze.
Yeah, very true, but you do a lot better after Husker wins. So I think you can make up for some of those Friday night wins.
Drinking for joy to celebrate. Brandon Vogel, we're going to celebrate a little bit more overtime with Vogues here next.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmidty.
Schmidty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Some overtime with Brandon Vogel from Counter Read, counterread.com. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're well on a Thursday. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe. Can watch the show that way. Hear us on the Hail Varsity Radio Network and follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Brandon will tell you how you can get in touch with him and Aaron Sorensen and Counterread, counterread.com, how you can subscribe in just mere moments. But, Vogues, we talked Carter Nelson. You ask an important question when we're talking about chasing 3 for Nebraska football. Can Nebraska kick it better? I have the Beastie Boys in my mind right now with kick it, and right now it ain't great vibes for Nebraska if it comes down to a kick. It's not that the talent isn't there. There just might not be a lot of faith that it'll go the right direction.
Yes, if the age-old question is, can we kick it? I think the answer is still yes, we can. At least that's what
I like it.
That's what a little bit of poking around showed me. So, look, this isn't, as I wrote in the story that you can check out at counterread.com today. This isn't an attempt to actually, a season when Nebraska made 60% of its field goals, which was 117th nationally. That's true. But so I wanted to know the actual impact of that, of what, in terms of points, what's that look like? And so using expected points based on distance, blah, 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 blah. A lot of stuff that's in the story, but doesn't make for good radio. I think it cost Nebraska about 4.5 points on the year, which ranked 118th amongst all kickers who had at least 12 field goal attempts, so basically won a game. But 4 points over 12 games, you're not talking about a lot. And it's a little bit tough because Nebraska was outscored by 3 on the season. So, if you're just replacement level, you outscore a team by 1. Does that make the difference between 5-7 and 6-6? Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of things that could have made the difference between 5-7 and 6-6. But I think the important takeaway here was, and this is something that came from one of our conversations on the weekend show. Listen to the weekend show, everybody. And Mark Kranak, I think, kind of planted the seed of can kickers get better, or they kind of are what they are, when this came out. And I haven't done all of the legwork on that, but the preliminary research would tell me that, yeah, you can bounce back from the true freshman, especially when you consider he was a true freshman, the true freshman season that Tristan Albano had. Ryan Fitzpatrick 2 seasons ago, was -6 in terms of value below a replacement kicker. He was Grozo Award finalist or semifinalist last season for Florida State. And as always with football, a lot of this comes down to, are you kicking low pressure field goals? Where are you kicking from? 5 of Albano's 6 misses were from 40 plus, which, you want a little more leg than that for an FBS kicker eventually. Maybe not as a true freshman. Maybe that's not a realistic expectation, but that's what it was. And you could look at that and point pretty clearly of okay, past 40, it gets, you get into a little bit more coin flip territory. So it needs to get better. Everybody agrees it needs to get better, but I don't think 2023 was quite as bad as it may have seemed initially. And I do think there's a good chance that they improve in 2024.
Elijah, in Vogue's, Alvado, he did it from 45 and 47 in the state championship, so he's made pressure kicks before.
He hit a 55-yarder against Purdue.
I know. So he's money. It comes down to either between the ears or a mechanical thing. Right, like the golf swing. What are you grinning about?
That's the two things it can only ever be, right?
Well, or maybe a slip. There's 100 things that can go wrong. Laces aren't out, Dan.
Okay, fair. I wonder.
You got a holder and a snapper that can hose you on this.
I wonder with this question whether Nebraska, assuming you have a more competent offense, puts less pressure onto the kicker, understanding that 4th and 3 in that long field goal range, 4th and 4 in that long field goal range is more likely to be a go for it territory as opposed to a kick it territory whenever you have an offense that is more able to pick up 4 yards.
You know what, Nebraska fans would, I think, you better get it, first of all, but second of all, the way the punting has gone, okay, you've had inconsistency there. So you might as well have gone for it a handful of times last year, because the opposing offense is going to start out with plus position or you miss the field goal. So, both the punting and the kicking, you might as well have gone old Pirate Leach and gone for it on 4th and 7. I mean, as it turns out, easier said than done, but it's just how it went. It was Murphy's Law, and it's been Murphy's Law with the kicking situation, guys, forever, except against Northwestern with a kid they pulled off the soccer team. A 1 hour session with Coach McBride, and he's kicking at 90%.
That's from Tiger Shark Diver.
Charlie and Mr. Patience.
Master motivator is what we'll say.
Yeah, a 2x4 and a nail called the motivator. That's no lie. Go ahead.
I feel like Nebraska was pretty aggressive on 4th downs on the opponent's half of the field.
Yeah.
That said, having an offense that's struggling with a kicker that's, kind of up and down through a freshman season is a tough combo. And it really does, that's where the difference of having a kicker who's above replacement value versus one who's below, it really changes the math on those 4th down decisions when you're in field goal range. You don't have to go for it as often for it to make sense to try the field goal. And Nebraska just wasn't there a year ago.
Vogues will get you out on this. Again, counterread.com. Tell folks what you're doing with Aaron Sorensen, and how folks can subscribe and all the deets.
Yeah. So twice weekly newsletter on Substack, which I'm not just saying this because it's what we chose, but legitimately after 7 months on it, I really enjoyed the platform. I think it's a good reading experience. There's not a pop-up ad to be seen. None of that stuff that makes surfing the internet occasionally a little more difficult these days. Go straight to your inbox if you want it to. So paid subscribers get two premium newsletters a week. We do another free story or 2 a week as well. Give people a taste of what we're doing. We talked about it here this week. I kind of wrote about Carter Nelson and if he's ready to go, what that could mean for Nebraska, and then also took a little bit of a deep dive into kicking. So that's kind of been the off season for us so far. So more of that to come. The off season's kind of never ending time of ideas for me in terms of little projects I want to complete. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you over there.
This is good. Get it done. Get subscribed. Vogues will bother you Saturday morning for the weekend edition. Always fun talking some ball and doing a little OT with you. Thanks for making it work today.
Sounds good. Thank you.
There he is, Brandon Vogel with us from counterread.com. Just a fun chat. We went a lot of different bases there with screw jobs, all-time screw jobs with Nebraska football in lieu of the Iowa call today in Omaha on second base, rudder interference, and there's no interference at all, and Iowa's sent home. Some of you are not sad about that. We'll get some thoughts on the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. Gambling-wise, Tony George going to join us from Doc Sports. Tony's been doing handicapping for 3 decades, a national award winner. When it comes to handicapping, we'll get his take on things. And we need to hear from Dannen, man. We haven't heard from Athletic Director Dannen. This was part of his interview last night on the Husker Sports Network. His reaction, he just lays out the facts of life here, life in the Big Ten, life taking money from Big Fox.
Well, a nationwide Fox audience for that game is going to be great. You want to be on national TV, and you want those games where if you're the standalone that everybody's watching, everybody's focused on you. I know Friday night games cause a lot of heartburn for a lot of reasons. We think of high school football, just the logistics of a Friday night game, in the middle of a college campus. So there are going to be a lot of challenges along with it, but I think the ability to put the Huskers in that stadium and our crowd in the national limelight for a night game, is one well worth the challenges that lie ahead with it. And the other thing is, we can be upset about it all we want, but we're cashing a pretty large check from our television contract every year, and this is the price of that check. And so in order to fund what we want to do, you end up with a Friday night game here and there. So different, and hopefully it's not something, as I told Matt, I think Friday night games are something that neither one of us hope are in our future, really to protect high school football as much as anything, and really to but we'll see what the logistics are and how we're able to manage it. I think, believe it or not, the volleyball event last year might have been a good dry run for us, and what it would look like, during the week and how the impact would be. So, challenge for our operations crew, but it's going to be a great environment. And I just, I love the fact that people around the country are just going to be focused on us that night and watching a game in Memorial Stadium.
So he hit all the right notes, and he gets it. He's been he's seen this, right, as the AD at Washington. And you just realize that you take what you can get, and right now you're going to be on prime time, and you can bellyache it all you want, and it ain't going to change. What you can't do is lay an egg on national TV, on National Fox, on the 20th of September against Illinois in a buzzworthy season where you could be unbeaten going in. You could have major momentum. Part of that unbeaten discussion goes into Colorado. He was asked about his reaction to Colorado at night.
Well, it's funny because even out here, that's been a little bit of the talk. And Matt told me one thing when I got here. He said you will find that the night game atmosphere here is second to none. And so, this is a chance to do it a couple of times, let alone against a rival. And from the day I got here, I was getting emails from our fans, just do whatever you can do to get that to be a night game. Do whatever you can do to get that to be a night game. So I know it's what our fans want. And trust, I had no influence in getting that done, but I'm glad it happened. There's just a lot to be excited for with what lies ahead. And I think, there'll be some news coming in the next couple of days, maybe about our game time for Thanksgiving weekend, and maybe get that opening game time out next week. And just all these things, these announcements just keep, staggering out one at a time over a matter of a few days. And all it does is really, I think, stirs everybody's excitement for what lies ahead.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We'll check in with the Pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman, tomorrow, part of your Average Joe Sports Show podcast, an OG member of the Average Joe Sports Show and the Tony George Show. He's been doing sports handicapping for he's holding the T-shirt up. Tony George is joining us from Vegas, the original OG. I love that. Tony George with us here on Hail Varsity.
When are you going to get me a shirt, Schmidty?
I don't know. Where he's still got it. And my wife said somebody came into the labor and delivery wearing one day. I'm kidding you not. Tony, it's good to have you on, man. Thanks for a few minutes. Doc Sports is where you can lock in with Tony and his handicapping expertise at Tony George on Twitter. What's up, dude? How you been?
I've been good, man. Out here in Vegas enjoying the life. And, of course, Miss Lincoln. Spent 26 years there. I always love it. They said, "Are you a Husker?" I said, "Well, let me tell you something. Both my children were born in Lincoln at Bryan Hospital. And within 20 minutes of coming out of the birthing canal in the little room where they put them in the baskets, they both had a Husker stocking cap on.
So did Junior.
You're born a Husker. That's how we roll. So I'm representing out here in Vegas, and I got to tell you, since I left Lincoln, Schmidty, it's been tough sledding, trying to prop up my boys. But I'm excited about this year's edition. Little trepidation. But I think I speak with guarded optimism, that I think the Matt Rule effect is going to show itself this year. And I do a lot of shows out here in Vegas down at Circa. There's a studio there and a sports book. And I've spoken to a lot of those hosts out there that are pretty sharp guys, and a lot of sharp bettors out here that I, run around with, and they're real high on Nebraska. They seem to be liking that over 7.5 wins. I'm thinking 7's a good. Hey, if we won 7, went to a bowl game, and won a bowl game against like a Mississippi State or, maybe
let's make it Auburn. Let's make it Auburn.
Okay, make it Auburn. But if we could go down there and get a win, that'd be a huge step forward for this program. I like what I saw in the spring game from Raiola, and I'm excited about Nebraska football this year, and that's something I really haven't said in the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, and I was going to ask you if you've put your money where your mouth is and bet the over, but you said you're waiting. 7's the number for you.
He's studying.
Are you waiting for a big money Iowa fan to bet the under and move that line down a little bit?
I think it might come off the hook there, because we always talk about you bet a Monday night football game and it's Kansas City's 3.5 over Detroit and they win by 3. The hook, they call that the hook, that half point. And out here we like to eliminate that hook if we can. And if anything, the prudent bet to me would be to take the under so that hook would work for me. They go 7-5 and I win a bet, and I also double win because we're going to a bowl game for the first time since Bo Pelini. So I take it, but I get my optimism up every year with these guys, and it's very difficult what I do here. Back when I was doing the Average Joe show, and I started out my radio career at ESPN 1480, and Schmidty, now he's on top of the mountain there now, but he was just an intern behind the board.
I was trying to get Mr. George his coffee, sir.
Yes, heavy on the sir, but nonetheless,
call me sir.
Yes, but nonetheless, back then, you were a fan, and now doing what I do for a living, kind of at a high profile level nationally, you really can't be a fan. The only person you could be a fan of is whoever you got money on. Mm-hmm. So I love the Cubs. I love the Yankees today, first 5 innings and overall on the run line. Tomorrow I'm probably going to hate them, but today I loved them. So it's very difficult to be like a Chiefs fan, which I've been my entire life growing up in Auburn. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Auburn. My wife's from Falls City. So, you grew up being a Royals and Chiefs fan and obviously a diehard Husker fan, plus being an alum. But there's a lot of people that are high on them to get to 8 wins this year. I was telling Schmidty on text, I got to see him close it out first.
Fair enough.
I got to see him put a game to bed. I mean, we still had a lot of the same problems early on last year that we had the previous year without Matt Rule. We had Frost and then, the interim, but we get close. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride type story. And I'm hoping that we can be the bride this year, close it out, go outside, throw the bouquet, go to a bowl game, kick somebody's butt and say, hey, guess what? When you come to Lincoln, Nebraska now, you better be ready to play some ball.
It's Tony George with us from Doc Sports, Average Joe Sports Show alum at Tony George, where you can find and follow his gaming work on Twitter and sports handicapping 3+ decades. Tony, I wanted to get your take. You mentioned the Rule kind of vibes, and what's the industry say about Rule? You guys like trends, you like data, you like proof, and right. you have that. You have that with Rule with previous college stops. Does that translate, do you think, in Lincoln?
Yeah, they do. They weren't high on him. I saw an Auburn Bulldog just pop up on the screen.
Cliff,
86, a little bit after my time. Obviously, Douglas, Tony George, so I was known as Douglas back in Auburn. You could check the police records. There's plenty of evidence that I was there.
There's note of a lot of other names, too.
Yeah, but I got by with a lot. My dad was the mayor down there forever, owned a body shop and was a mayor down there forever. But Rule was highly respected as a college coach. He wasn't so respected as an NFL coach. And people got a lot of even last year, the talk was, everybody calm down. It takes him a year. He's got to get his people in there. And that's kind of the same way with everybody. But they were really reiterating and pounding that last year. And I took the under 6 wins last year with them. I kind of felt the same way.
You're the only guy with red in his closet that was cheering for a dreary November.
Did you take your wife to Mexico with the Huskers last year, too?
Yeah. Well, I thought Frost might have been the answer. I was on the bandwagon when it came out. I thought maybe, speaking of an original OG, there's one right there. I mean, did everything he possibly could do to win a football game when he was a player. He was an unbelievable athlete, and the whole pedigree of his family is unbelievable as far as athletes and being Nebraska fans. But I was so disappointed. I just didn't know how bare the cupboards were. Schmidty comes on my show every year right after the Big Ten Media Day when he gets to go out there and fly. He flies in the company Learjet and stays there at the Hilton. So I give him a couple of days to come down off his cloud, and then I put him on the show. But I think we both were a little pessimistic even last year, Schmidty. I know you got to be optimistic because of your position in radio there. I think everybody wants to win every game. But last year, I thought we both were like, well, let's see, there's going to be a big learning curve. And I think
Tony, hang tight. We got a couple more minutes on the other side. Got a hard break. More with Tony George. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back out to Vegas we go. Tony George, Doc Sports, Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Tony George back with us. Tony, it's been fun talking Big Red. We'll do this again as we get closer to kickoff. 100 days exactly, but who's counting? All of us are counting. I want to get your thoughts. I loved watching the NBA last night. It's been years since I've been excited for it. I'm excited for the Wolves series, and they're fun, man. They're a fun squad. The Mavs are incredible as well, and what a game one it was. You've got second game of Boston and Indy tonight. Do you have an NBA or an NHL take? We're into the conference finals now.
Well, yeah, I still think that Boston's the best team in the NBA, but I think they're poorly coached. You've seen that time and time again, but they can beat anybody. This is a team that they beat earlier this year, 155-108. And then the second game of the first series they lost against Miami by double digits as a double-digit favorite. Same thing happened
Cleveland.
against Cleveland.
I mean, that was brutal.
Yeah.
That would have been. I'm sure you were on Cleveland that night.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was pounding the. Yeah. I put Grandma's bonds on that one. But no, you got to be careful with Boston. They're an 8.5-point favorite tonight. Opened at 9, total 225. I'd still lean Indiana. When they have Porzingis in there for Boston, they're the best team in the NBA, bar none, man for man. Yeah. And they got 3 guys on the bench. You got to worry about their coaching, their intensity. And if they show up, they can beat anybody in the NBA by double digits on any night. You got to worry about that. But without Porzingis, they had a lot of problems with Halliburton on that pick and roll up top. And then when they came up to try and stop it, they left Turner wide open down in the paint, and they just were getting easy buckets. And that's a game Indiana should have won. On the other side of the coin, you mentioned the T-Wolves. I'm not saying last night was an aberration because I bet Minnesota -4 and lost my butt. But there was a little bit of a hangover fatigue from playing in the altitude and being where they're at, and they're a young team. But the sum of all parts, the whole of Minnesota is better than a two-headed monster with Irving and obviously Luka Doncic's going to do. Luka Doncic's like Tommy Frazier. He's going to do what he does, and you can only hope to slightly contain him. But when you got Irving scoring 25 or 30 a night, that's when Dallas becomes very dangerous. And I think Minnesota will make some adjustments. They got eaten up on the boards, and that's one thing about betting the NBA. Whoever you think is going to win the rebounding war, and if that team is catching points, that's the team you want to be on. I think Minnesota will turn that around. They're laying 5 points tomorrow night, and the total is exactly the same at 207.
Okay. Anything on the ice here about 90 seconds? Just Jack Daniels?
You know what? I have a feeling that Edmonton might win that series against Dallas. I take them as an underdog to win that series.
Okay.
On the other one, Florida all the way. Sure. You saw it last night. They're just a team on a mission. I'd bet Florida damn near every game. They're going to be a big underdog tomorrow. If they win that game tomorrow at the Garden, they're probably going to put them away in 4 or 5 games there. I think we're going to end up seeing Florida and Dallas. So on the futures market, I'd bet both those guys to win the series because I did.
This may be un-American. I'd love to see a Canadian Stanley Cup champion this year, though.
Mm-hmm. We'll send you up there. It's Tody George, Doc Sports. Tody, we love you. Thanks for the time, brother.
You bet. Glad to be back on the radio. I can't wait to get back and get me a crisp meat burrito, Schmidty, after we go to Molly's and have a few drinks.